What is up, One Church? I'm CJ.
And I'm Grace. Welcome to One Church Online. If this is your first time with us, text new 1C to 97,000 so we can get to know you better.
And now we're going to enter our time of worship. Thank you for joining us.
The weapon may be formed, but he won't prosper. When the darkness falls, he won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. My God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. I'm not backing down from any giant, 'cause I know how the story ends. Yes, I know how the story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see your victory. I'm gonna see your victory. Yeah. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. walking around these walls. I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, and this is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love, and my heart will sing your praise again. Oh, your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, and this is my confidence. You've never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, and this is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You've made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You've made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it again. Oh, your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. Faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. And this is my confidence. You've never failed me yet.
And now is the time in our service where we continue our worship through our giving. If you've never given before, all the ways you can give are on the screen now. And it's because that you give that we can do all the stuff that's happening in the life of our church. Starting on January 24th, group launch. I'm so excited for it because I'm trying to get into 2 groups. If you've never done groups before, make sure you text groups 1C to 97,000 just to make sure that you get in a group that you're interested in. If you've never done it before, it's a really, really awesome experience. What else we got going on, Grace?
Also on January 24th at 11 a.m., right after our 9 o'clock service, we're going to be having our family service. It's for parents and kids of all ages to come and experience church together. It's going to be super fun. There's going to be stuff for your kids. It's going to be stuff for you as adults. We really hope that you'll come join us.
And now Pastor Carlo is going into week 4 of our series, Detours.
Continue down Scavern Street for a half mile. In 400 feet, make a left.
Right here?
Detour up ahead.
This is a parking
Now
lot. What
slow
am I?
down. Rerouting.
This is the direction? What are we doing?
Rerouting.
Am I here? What are we?
Just keep driving. Detour up ahead.
Bro, this don't lead nowhere. Siri.
Stop.
What?
Stop here.
Why? Why here? Am I here? What are we doing?
Just wait.
Wait! I've never heard it say that ever!
Rerouting.
Got the stuff? What?
Drive now.
Where am I?
Go.
What?
Drive.
Okay! No!
In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles Underground. And today, still wanted by the government, they serve as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, and if no one else can help you, and if you can find them, maybe you can call the A-Team, right? I love that show growing up. Loved it so much, this ain't the first sermon where I've shared that A-Team intro. I love the A-Team. As a kid, I found it fascinating how these renegade soldiers could blend into just about any situation and get just about anyone out of any jam. And the best part of the show was the plan. They would usually come to the side of someone who sought their help. Normally, there was some politician, corrupt politician, or a drug dealer, or some other thug that was wreaking havoc on some poor townspeople. And the A-Team, they would come in and through a series of tricks and cons and subversive measures, disguises, decoys, they would figure out a way to overcome the bad guy. Then they'd make this final plan, and they would take everyday household items, spray paint and a nail gun and tools from the garage, and somehow they'd make an arsenal out of all of this stuff. Then a fight would take place. There would be tons of explosions and craziness. Surprisingly, no one ever died, but that's not the point. And then the A-Team would save the day, right? And Hannibal, who was the boss, he would always end that part of the show by saying, "I love it when a plan comes together." I love it when a plan comes together. Now, for all the cool things that I loved about the A-Team as a show, there are some things that are quite troubling. I think it's important for us to dig into just a little bit. So the A-Team, although they are falsely accused, they really are fugitives from justice who justify their criminality with good works. I mean, that really is, sorry to over-spiritualize it and to be a wet blanket for you A-Team fans out there, but they're basically fugitives on the run who try to justify that by doing good works. They also operate under a facade. No one can really know who they are because they'll go back to jail. And what we really learn is that even their best laid plans don't really free them from the reality of their drama, that they are fugitives on the run. So we're in week 4 of this series on the life of Joseph as found in the book of Genesis. And we're learning about detours. We're learning that detours are inconvenient distractions from your original pre-planned route. They are inconvenient distractions from the original way we wanted to go. We love it when a plan comes together, but let's be honest. Sometimes the plan doesn't come together because of a detour. Think about the year we just left. What detours did you face in 2020? I'm not talking about you had to wear a mask or socially distance, couldn't gather with your friends for months, although those were detours. I mean, what dreams did you enter into 2020 with that went sideways about 90 days into the year? As we're learning in this series, Joseph, he had a dream, and his brothers hated him for it. They hated him so much that they sold him into slavery. God gave Joseph a dream that he would one day see his brothers and his father bow down before him. Yet at this point in Joseph's story, as we're discovering, life looked way more like a nightmare than a dream. Have you been there? Life looks and feels way more like a nightmare than a dream. January 1st, 2021 came, and you thought you would wake up to this brand new reality, and you realize, oh, the only thing that changed was a date on a calendar, and you're still feeling kind of stuck, still feeling detoured. Joseph, after getting sold into slavery, after tasting a measure of freedom, and then he gets falsely accused, as we learned a couple weeks ago, he gets thrown into jail. I bet he must have felt the same way. I bet he must have felt like a dream doesn't mean a thing. Dreams are meaningless. A dream doesn't even mean a thing. Let's jump back into his story in Genesis chapter 41. Here's what it says. 2 full years later. So Joseph is back in chains. He's been falsely accused of some very, very bad stuff by Potiphar's wife, so he gets thrown into jail. So Joseph is back in chains. First it was as a slave, now it's as a prisoner. It says, 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the river Nile. And in his dream, he saw 7 fat, healthy cows come out of the river and begin grazing in marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up behind them from the Nile. But these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood beside the fat cows on the riverbank. Then the scrawny, thin cows ate the 7 healthy, fat cows. And at that point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up. Now I read that and I'm like, what in the too much wine before dinner is going on in that story? Like, that does not make sense at all. Like, someone ate too many pieces of pizza before they went to bed, right? What kind of dreams are going on here? Skinny cows and fat cows, and what's happening? That's not the end of it. Let's keep reading verse 5. He fell asleep again and had what? A second dream. This time he saw 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Now let me pause right there. I bet you can guess where this is going, right? Verse 6, then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were shriveled and withered by the east wind. And then these thin heads swallowed up the 7 plump, well-formed heads. Then Pharaoh woke up again and realized it was a dream. Now, if you just read that on the surface and you're kind of big like me, you might think, uh-oh, I'm doomed. I'm going to get eaten by some skinny vegetarian, right? They're going to come and take us meat eaters out or whatever, right? If you're kind of plump, you're nervous hearing this. Calm down. It's not about us. But this is definitely some weird stuff happening. Maybe Pharaoh had too many chicken wings before he went to bed. I don't know. Maybe he had a rum and Coke that was way more rum than Coke. I don't know what's going on in his life. But can we all agree that this is some trippy stuff happening in this dreaming? Joseph had been detoured and tested, and now we've got someone else's crazy dream to contend with. Let's keep reading. Verse 8 of chapter 41. It says, the next morning, Pharaoh was very disturbed by the dreams. And we all said, duh, right? So he called for the magicians and the wise men of Egypt. And when Pharaoh told them his dreams, not one of them could tell him what they meant. See, Pharaoh's dreams didn't mean a thing without an interpretation. It was just craziness. They didn't mean anything without an interpretation. Now, I'm not trying to stretch this scripture beyond its context, but I can tell you this is very close to what happened with, I'm just going to say it, with what happened to the church in 2020. This global pandemic strikes, and all the doctors and all the wise men in our country couldn't really make sense of what was going on. They were figuring it out as they went along. And then our country erupts in civil unrest and racial upheaval, and all of the scholars and all of the people who are experts, and sadly, many of the pastors, they couldn't tell the world what a lot of this stuff actually meant. And when the world needed a prophetic voice to stand up with a God-ordained plan, many of the loudest voices had nothing of substance to say. Many of the so-called experts on every single side and every single perspective, they came up lost. They came up empty. And that's exactly what happens here to Pharaoh. The people he's expecting to have all the answers, they can't interpret his wild and wacky and weird dreams. But check out what happens next. Verse 9. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. He said, "Today I have been reminded of my failure." He told Pharaoh, "Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. And there was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. And we told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant." Who is this man that they're talking about? Joseph, right? This is Joseph. Joseph interprets their dreams. Verse 13. "And everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as cupbearer. Chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. And after he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, 'I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it meant. But I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it.'" And I love Joseph's response here. Joseph in verse 16 says, "It is beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease." All of this time, Joseph is in jail. All his time serving Potiphar as slave, all his time that he was suffering and beat up, all that stuff did was just draw Joseph closer to God. Detour after detour after detour, all because of this God-given dream. And all it actually did was help Joseph grow more in his closeness with God. Joseph knew that any favor he had in his life, it came from the God who gave him the dream, who had big plans for his life, who cared more about developing him than developing that dream. And Joseph stayed true to that every single step of the way. And now here he is, standing before the Pharaoh, saying, "Listen, God can tell you what's going on, and he can set you at ease." Now, for the sake of time, let me just give you a quick summary. What happens is Pharaoh, then he goes on to repeat the dream to Joseph. We don't have time to really read through all that again, but Pharaoh basically lays it all out to Joseph. Fat cows, fat grain, skinny grain, right? He lays it all back out to him. And then Joseph explains to Pharaoh that these dreams are actually a sign of what God is about to do. He basically tells him, look, there's going to be 7 years of awesome, 7 years of prosperity, more than we're going to know what to do with, but it's going to be followed by 7 of the hardest years we've ever had in our lives. So basically, we have to prepare while things are good, because the day is going to come when things are going to be worse than we've ever seen. And what happens next is game-changing for Joseph, right? What happens in this story next just turns everything around. What started out as a dream that didn't mean a thing actually turned into a dream that changed everything. What started out as a dream that didn't mean a thing ends up becoming a dream that changes everything. Let's keep reading verse 32. Jump down to verse 32 of Genesis 41. It says, "As for having 2 similar dreams," so this is Joseph talking to Pharaoh. He says, "As for having 2 similar dreams, it means the events are decreed by God, and he's going to make them happen soon. Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt." This is Joseph talking to Pharaoh. Verse 34. "Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring them to Pharaoh's storehouses. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way, there will be enough to eat when 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, the famine will destroy the land. Simply put, Joseph told Pharaoh, a dream won't mean a thing without a plan. You got to have a plan. Pharaoh, your dreams are meaningless if you don't plan. If you don't take advantage of this, you got to have a plan. And that was true then, and that is true now. A dream doesn't mean a thing without a plan. It's got to have an interpretation, but it's got to have a plan. Today it seems like everyone is all about dreaming big. There's an entire industry that centers on selling people a dream lifestyle built on travel and money and image. And I'm not here to diss travel or money or image, but the problem with dream culture is it often ignores the work culture that makes dreams come true. Hard work works. I know too many people who focus on what they want 5 years from now, right? They get so caught up in what's down the road, they neglect the hot mess that is their lives right now. I talk with business people who are in trouble today, but they're transfixed on this big plan down the road. And I get that. A plan is better than no plan, but your plans are meaningless if you don't have the fortitude to faithfully execute in the space that you're in right now. You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy for executing. A dream doesn't mean a thing without a plan. But it can't just be any plan. It can't just be any old plan. It just can't be anything that you come up with to get you out of the jam that you might be in on your detour. Let's keep reading. Verse 37. Joseph's suggestions were all well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone like this man so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. Look at verse 40. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. So for several weeks, Pastor Chris has been telling us Joseph's eventually going to be second in command in Egypt. Well, here it is. Here's where it actually happens. Pharaoh has the crazy dreams, the wise men and the intelligent men and the leaders and the scholars, they can't interpret it. Then someone remembers Joseph in chains. Joseph the prisoner gets cleaned up, stands before Pharaoh as a prisoner, as a convict. He interprets the dream. He gives this plan, and he gets promoted from slavery, from chains, to the number 2 person in Egypt. Verse 41, Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. This is a big deal. We overlook this. We live in this American context, and we think about where we're at right now, but this is the ancient Near East, and Egypt is one of the most powerful nations in the world at that time. And he's telling this former Hebrew slave, this Hebrew prisoner convict, you're going to be in charge of it all. That's powerful. Verse 42. Then Pharaoh removed his ring from his hand, placed it on Joseph's finger, dressed him in fine linen, hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in chariots reserved for second in command. And wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, kneel down. Some of y'all wish that was your life right now, right? Everywhere you went, someone yelled out, bow down, bow down. Well, this is happening for him. Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. Verse 44. And Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. Joseph's detour was just a mechanism that God used to get him to this high place. I love how people have said it for years. Joseph's setback was just a setup for his comeback, right? Joseph was set back. He had some trials, lots of trials, but really it was just setting him up for what was about to come. And that's kind of been a theme in this series, right? We've been talking about this preparation that happens. We've been talking about how God's more concerned with developing something in us rather than that end goal and that dream. That's important, but who are we becoming on the journey? And now Joseph is living it up. Joseph is living it up. Right now, he is fulfilling all of the things that God said would happen to him. It's starting to come to pass. There's so many layers of this story that apply to our lives right now. On one hand, some of you right now sitting at home on your couch, you've been detoured. Some of you, you've got family members who are sick. You've been in that fire. You've been tested. You want to quit. My friend, I'm telling you, hold on. Because what looks like a setback may very well be the thing that God is using to set you up for something better. Listen, this is not just some preacher cliche. I'm just not up here blowing smoke to you. I believe this. I've lived this. I've seen this happen in my own life, in the lives of my family, in the lives of my friend. That time that we think is going to end us, if we hold fast, trust in God, stay close to Him like Joseph did, you may find yourself actually being set up for something so much better than you could have ever imagined. Maybe you're in a position like Joseph, and someone is waiting on you to make sense of their lives. Think about it. Pharaoh was stuck and in trouble. No one could help him. He was waiting on a Joseph to show up and help him and speak in his life. God has you where you are for this time right now. Don't quit. Joseph trusted God. He stayed close to God through prayer, through devotion, and through his behavior. And Joseph's God-given dream became a reality. Here's the big idea. A dream doesn't mean a thing apart from God's plan. Write down your dreams, write down your visions, have your vision boards, do all of that stuff. I'm just telling you, here's the facts. Your dream doesn't mean a thing apart from God's plan. Scripture tells us in so many ways. We can plan all we want to, but it's the Lord who directs our cause. It's God who goes before us. His ways are above our ways. His plan is the one we have to trust in. He's the one that directs our steps and our paths. He's the one who grants the desire of our heart. It's God's ways that matter the most. A dream doesn't mean a thing apart from God's plan. When Joseph was 17 years old, he announced his dream to his family with a focus that was, quite frankly, all about himself. Then, at 30, he discovered that his destiny was really all about saving thousands of lives, if not millions of lives. His dream wasn't just about him. It was about God's ultimate plan. When I was in high school, I believed God gave me a dream, a call that I would spend my life studying the Bible and teaching people about Jesus. I could take you to the very spot right now on the campus of Southeastern University in Lakeland, Florida, where I was not a student at the time, but I hung out there a lot. I could take you right to the spot, what's now a dormitory, where I truly felt God tell me, hey, this is what you're going to do in your life. And I get to live my dream every day. I'm thankful for that. I'm in a season where, man, I get to read and research and write and study and support my family, doing all that stuff, teaching, and I love it. However, the path from dream to reality in my own life was far from glamorous. Far from glamorous. My first job was as a fry cook in Youngstown, Ohio, getting paid under the table. I was basically SpongeBob working at a short order place called Cuzzy's. We had rats in that place, right? That was my first gig getting paid under the table. I remember I spent my first paycheck on a stuffed crust pizza from Pizza Hut, and I ate it at the dinner table. Didn't share any with my family while they were eating Hamburger Helper. My brother and sister, I was enjoying my pizza. Some would say I still struggle with sharing a little bit today. Maybe that's what it comes from. I don't know. Right. That's my first job. Then, as a teenager, I worked as a lot man on a buy here, pay here car lot in Tampa, Florida. Fun job, picking up trash, right? Once I actually wrecked a van. I ran it into a pole, tore down a fence in the same week. Terrible job. I worked at this restaurant called Village Inn. For those of you who don't know what that is, kind of like an IHOP type of deal, Denny's type of deal. I worked there for 48 hours. I took out the trash on my second day as a dishwasher, and I kept on walking because that job was absolutely miserable. I worked at 7-Eleven, convenience store, right, selling cigarettes and beer and working the midnight shift. I loved a lot of things about that job except for the pay, right? Had one too many Slurpees on that job. I worked in a music retail store before. I sold clarinet reeds and saxophones and rented trumpets to band kids and band moms and sold all of that stuff. Did that job. That job made me learn the art of service and customer service. For 5 years and a couple months, Uncle Sam captured my heart in the United States Army. In the Army, the world, we get blown up and shot at and all this kind of stuff, wore the colors of the most effective fighting force in the history of the world, and I loved that job. And since then, I've been in full-time nonprofit work as a pastor, as an educator, giving my life away to others. Why did I tell you all that stuff? Because every job that I had prepared me for what I get to do right now, which is to live my dream. Everything that I did, everything that I went through, and that's just the Cliff Notes version, right? I didn't talk about the pain, didn't talk about the suffering, didn't talk about the setbacks, didn't talk about the betrayal, didn't talk about the hurt and all the stuff that comes along with that and all the life and the mess that comes in that. I'm just telling you, my dreams didn't mean a thing apart from God's plan. I get this call that I'm going to be a leader and a pastor, and in my thought it's, well, I'm going to go to Bible college for 4 years and study in this beautiful university and sit in classes and write sermons and do all this stuff, and then I'm going to get this amazing job as a full-time pastor. And let me just tell you, that's not how life worked. It's not how life works. Your dream doesn't mean a thing apart from God's plan. Doesn't mean a thing. What happened in Joseph's story? It went down exactly as God had revealed it to him. Pharaoh implemented Joseph's plan, and the Egyptians were able to stockpile, and they were able to thrive. Joseph, he gets married. He has 2 sons. He has so much God-given power. In fact, so much power that in the middle of that famine, literally Pharaoh says, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you. That's powerful. This kid who has this dream, and he kind of gives it away a little bit too fast to his brothers, and he gets punished, and he gets detoured, and he thinks it's supposed to go one way, and it goes a completely different way. We come to find out that, look, that dream doesn't mean anything without God's plan. And Pharaoh, this great leader, has this wild and wacky dream, and it doesn't mean anything without an interpretation. And you know what? It didn't mean anything without a plan. And that plan had to be God's plan. We're going to get there next week and kind of show you how that was God's plan for it to all come down. But let me just ask you, where are you at in your journey right now? Detoured? Are you tested? Look, no matter what your dream is, you have to know it doesn't mean a thing apart from God's plans. I want you to dream big. Please do. But remember, as the old quote goes, right? The best way to make your dream come true is to wake up and to take steps to pursue it and be faithful right where God has you. Have you this year, as people have resolved and people have revolved and people have evolved and done all these changes, and we see the new year, new you kind of posts, and I don't know if you're like me, man, you want to throw up at seeing some of that stuff because you're kind of cynical and you kind of know how it's going to end up. We're several weeks into the new year already, and some of us, we've already blown the diet. Some of us, we've already stopped exercising like we said we would. Maybe this is the first time you've connected with a local church, even though back in January 1, you said, I'm going to get connected spiritually. Maybe you're just now coming along to that. First, I want to let you know it doesn't matter how you start. What matters the most is how you finish. I should say your start matters, but your start doesn't have the final say. We all get that chance, second chance, third chance, millionth chance in God's economy to finish strong. Maybe you're here and you're just discouraged. You're not, things aren't going the way you thought they were. We thought maybe things would turn around in our country a little bit faster. You thought maybe things would turn around. Look, at the time that we're giving this talk, we know some big changes happening here in the United States of America, and we think that that's going to solve all the issues, and we think that that's going to be the be-all and the end-all. I'm just telling you, look, people can plan. If we learned anything, right, from 2020, we know you can make all the plans you want to. At the end of the day, without God's plan, it's going to be nothing. In 2020, I was supposed to travel to several countries, preach in a couple different countries, do all kinds of stuff, and I'm telling you, I watched my plan. I thought it was a good plan. I thought it was a God plan, and I watched it all evaporate the first weekend, second weekend of March, like so many of you all did. And I had to really wrestle with, wait a minute, God, were those my plans or your plans? God, are you really in control? Are you not in control? I had to understand that, look, those detours, they're for a purpose, and I need to lean into this, and I know that what I'm going through now is going to prepare me for what God has for me. I need to trust in His plan. So, how do we live this out? Let me share 3 quick steps for you in dream development, right? We're talking about God gives us these dreams. We got to have a plan. How do I execute these plans? What do I do? I would say the first thing you need to do in this dream development is you need to plan to stay close to God. Plan to stay close to God. There's going to be opposition in your life. It's going to tempt you to deny the dream that God has given you. For example, not everyone's going to believe in your goal. Not everyone's going to believe in that vision, that thing that you want to do. Joseph shared his dream with his brothers, and you know what they did, right? They conspired to take his life. And though Joseph, he may have been a little arrogant in sharing that dream too early, he certainly didn't deserve the level of resentment that he had. Joseph's dream was immediately met with opposition. And you and I, we're probably going to experience some of that same thing. We're talking about our dreams and we're talking about our plans with other people's. But here's what you need to do. You need to step out in faith anyway. Share that dream with someone that you trust. Share that dream with someone that you know can help you. Someone that you know is going to stand beside you and help you. But the big thing you need to do is no matter how people respond, you need to plan to stay close to God. Conditions are never going to be perfect. Conditions are never going to be the way that we think they are. But the one thing that'll be consistent as we're on this journey is that God is with us and He's for us and He'll help us. So practically, that's why this time of year is an amazing time to develop that habit, healthy habits. I'm going to be in the Word of God, the Bible, daily. I'm going to use applications like the YouVersion app on my phone. I'm going to subscribe to a plan. Go to our Facebook page, and you can connect with us there. We've got some of those links for us. I'm going to get involved, connect in a group. Our groups are launching on the 24th of January. I'm going to be intentional on connecting. I'm going to be intentional on communicating with God through prayer, being in His Word. I'm going to plan to stay close to God, because I know there's going to come a time in this upcoming year where it's going to hit the fan, and it's going to be perhaps too late then to try to get some things right. Why don't you just go ahead right now and plan to stay close to God? It's a key step in your dream development. The second thing is plan to be tested. We've talked about this already. In fact, Pastor Chris talked about this a couple of weeks, right? A couple weeks ago. Plan to be tested. Keep reminding yourself about that. When it feels like you're forgotten by your friends, when it feels like people are not paying attention to what's going on, or that no one is helping you, or that no one is for you, remember that God has not forgotten you. Be faithful to what God is doing and using you, and understand that those tests and those trials and those hard times, they're designed to make you better. Listen, there is no book of suffering that I can give you to help you learn how to master that. It's one of those things in life. Resilience is one of those things in life that there's not enough theory in the world to help you grasp the concept. You have to actually go through it. I remember in April of 2020, just right at the peak of all this stuff going crazy, world shutting down, I remember almost being woken up from my sleep as I really felt something in me. I think it was God speaking through me, basically calling me out as I was stressed out and worried, and literally telling me, hey, you wrote a book on resilience. Time to live that stuff out. And I had to realize, man, you can even write books on this stuff. You have to live it out. Plan to be tested. Joseph, he was tested multiple times. But Joseph, he made what I like to call the pre-choice choice, that he's going to choose character every step of the way. He's not going to turn back. He's going to trust in God every single step of the way. You want to develop your dreams, you need a plan to stay close to God. It's not going to happen accidentally. You need a plan to be tested. You just need to know it's going to come. And as we come your way, and as we say in a military word, then you embrace the suck, right? Because we know it's only helping make us better. And then finally, you need to plan for others. This is key when we're talking about dream development. Plan for others. Joseph, he was 17 years old. He announces this dream to his family. 30 years, he realizes that his destiny is not all about himself. There's these mile markers of maturity that happen in our lives as we're moving towards dream fulfillment. And we know that, and one way, I love how one person said this, we know that the dream and the dreamer have matured when the dream is no longer about themselves, but it's about others. I'll say that again. You know that your dream has matured, and you know that you have matured as a dreamer when that dream is no longer just about yourself. When your plans are no longer just about yourself, it's about others. Then you know you're in that sweet spot. There's no selfishness in God's will for your life. So even as you're thinking through these plans, God's plans that help these dreams come into fruition, just know there's no selfishness in the will of God. Plans are necessary. They're absolutely necessary. But a dream without a plan is just a fairy tale. However, a dream doesn't mean a thing apart from God's plan. I want you to experience the absolute best that God has for you, but it's going to be some trial. It's going to be some tests. We're going to be detoured as we're learning, but know that God's plan is the one that changes everything. Let me pray for you. God, I love you. I thank you so much for the power of your word. Thank you for your truth. Thank you that we can come to you, and God, that you don't leave us alone in our mess. The things you place on our heart, the passions that you give us, God, we know every single believer in you has this calling to serve others and to help advance your great kingdom, to lead people in a growing relationship with you. So help us to marry those two. The things that we feel that you've put in our heart, but God, but your ultimate plan. Help us to marry those together and to trust in you. I thank you for your plan working in all of our lives. We trust you no matter who's in charge, no matter who's running a country, no matter what we may see in culture that has us wanting to be fearful, God. Instead, we're going to lean in. We're going to trust in you. We're going to make our plans and we're going to strategize and we're going to do all of that stuff, God. We're going to be wise, but we're ultimately going to know that we're trusting in you and in you alone. God, for the person watching this morning, connecting with us later on this afternoon, person, who's in the middle of the week, God, just digging into this content, on a lunch break or on a run, wherever they're at right now, if they're connecting to this content and they are not connected to you, God, I pray this will be that moment. They would just say, Lord, forgive me, help me. I need you. Save me. God, I've blown it. I'm tired of doing things on my own. And I know as they take that step to you, whenever it is, God, I know that you show up like you only can, and you save, you bring hope, and you bring life. I thank you so much, God, for giving us this opportunity to worship you, to give this opportunity to learn from you. Help us to trust in your plan, to dream big, but to ultimately trust in your plan. In the strong name of Jesus, amen.
Man, Pastor Carla, thank you so much for that amazing message.
Service isn't over yet. You can head to oneChurch.tv/kids for lessons online that you can watch with your kids and some worship.
And now, if you'd like to stay connected with us, text Connect1C to 97,000. And now, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Go and be the church.